Hey guys, it's Beth, and today I have kind of a different project for you. I didn't take a break from the All Seasons 3 pad, but I had to work another project kind of in between those little projects. I needed to replenish the corner bookmarks that I use on my Etsy orders, like the paperwork. I take my paperwork and my card and slide it in here, and these help hold the paperwork together, and plus it acts as a little free gift to whoever orders from me. So I need to replenish those. I needed to make some more, and then I also needed to make some more bookmarks for Cards for Soldiers. Normally when I go to make these bookmarks, I kind of go through my paper stash, like my individual paper stash, and just kind of pull out a handful that look like they would be good to use. Thicker paper works a little bit better for this. It doesn't have to be double-sided, but a thicker paper makes these a little more sturdy. So I went through my stash, flipped through everything, and nothing really called out to me. So I was going through my pads, and I ran across this one that I inherited from my cousin who was destashing. And it's not necessarily my style. It's pretty paper, not necessarily my style, but you know me, I'm not one to turn down some free pattern paper. I could use it. I always figure I can use it somehow, even if I don't like it or if it's not my style, it's someone else's. And so I make a lot of stuff for other people, whether it's donations or orders or gifts. So I can always use it somehow. And there were originally 24 sheets in it, and there were like 18 left. So I just decided to go ahead and take the whole pad and just make as many bookmarks as I could out of the pad, and then find a way to use up what was left and then count it as another kilopad project. So the pad it's a K & Company pad by Brenda Walton, and there's no name on it. I even looked through, there was a UPC symbol that I had cut off the pad cover in the trash, but there was no name on it. It just says specialty paper. But so I don't know if I can find the name, or I'll link the code below if you guys like the paper. But like I said, there were originally 24 sheets in it, and there were 18 left when I pulled it out of my stash, and I took 15 of those sheets to make bookmarks. There were 3 sheets that I didn't use because I didn't feel like they would be good used as bookmarks. I don't know if you can see the glitter in this one, plus all the big color blocks. Like I said, they are double-sided. And then I had 2 sheets left of this pattern, and it's very heavily embossed. I don't know how I can show you that, but it's like a real thick embossing texture. And plus it's such a big scene, I didn't want to break that up for a bookmark. Plus I thought it would get lost, either on these or even laminated. So I will do something else with those. But of the 15 sheets that I did use for bookmarks, I managed to get 60 of the little corner bookmarks, and then I got 60 long bookmarks. And because the paper was double-sided, I decided to laminate these so that both sides could be enjoyed. Normally I would take the paper and glue it down to like one of the pad covers just to give them some more stability. But this time I wanted to be able to enjoy both sides, so I cut them down and then laminated them. And there were several pieces of the papers that had words on them. And so I tried to think about that before I cut the paper up so that I could utilize those words, or the pretty flowers. So like so many different patterns. Here's one, it's kind of one of my favorites. It's got a little bit of gold foil in it. And then I also utilized, the reason that the pad cover is already cut up, because I utilized it to get some bookmarks as well. Because I thought even this with all the different patterns, it's just kind of very colorful. So anyway, 60 long bookmarks, 60 corner bookmarks, and then that left me with a lot of weird scraps. I'll show you guys, I'm actually going to walk you through how I got 8 bookmarks out of one sheet of 12 by 12 paper. And so this will make more sense once I kind of show you the process. I'll also walk you through how I make each of my bookmarks. But for the corner bookmarks, You start out with a square and you score it so you end up with 4 quadrants in that square. You cut 1 full quadrant off, and so you end up with a whole bunch, or I ended up with a whole bunch of little square scraps. And then right here for this little pocket, you cut 1/2 of a quadrant off at a diagonal, so you also end up with triangle scraps. These are the ones I find the hardest to use for some reason. But I'm going to take the squares, the triangles, and then I have some random scraps from the pad cover left, as well as the first sheet that I cut up. I was trying to remember how I could get, how I could maximize that sheet to get the most bookmarks. So I have some random scraps left as well. So I'm going to utilize those scraps plus my 3 full sheets and come up with some cards or embellishments or something. I will use the rest of those up as well. So I just wanted to kind of share this project with you, 1, because it is becoming kind of a kilopad project for me, and 2, just to show you that, you don't necessarily have to look at a pad for just cards, or you don't have to look at them as I usually look at them, like, ooh, how many different projects can I get out of it? I mean, I went into this knowing that all I wanted was bookmarks, and then anything else I got out of it is kind of just like icing on the cake. So give me a minute to kind of get this out of the way, and then I can show you how I got 8 bookmarks out of 1 piece of paper, and then how, like, kind of my process for making both the long bookmarks and my little corner ones, because I know I've talked about them both a lot, but I don't think I've ever made them for you guys on video. Okay, so I have a piece of patterned paper. It's single-sided, but it is a little bit thicker, if you can tell by the sound, and it's actually an old Pebbles ink P.Etc. paper called Summer Tiles. I'm pretty sure I've had this for like 12 years, if not more. Actually, I know it's been longer than that because I got it shortly after we got married, and that's been 16 years. So let's get this old paper used up. So I'm first going to cut off the little strip at the bottom, get that out of my way. And then I'm going to take my paper and I'm going to cut 2 inches off of one end. We'll see if it lines up with the squares at all. So I'm going to cut my paper, cut it down to 10 inches, and then I'm going to turn it a quarter, and I'm going to cut another 2 inches off. So now I have 2 2-inch wide strips, and then I have 1 piece that is 10 by 10. I'm going to take this big piece and I'm going to cut it down to 4 squares, and they will be 5 by 5 inches each. So there's my squares, and these are going to be the corner bookmarks. So there's those, and then for these squares, or for these strips, I have one that is 10 inches by 2 inches and one that's 12 by 2. So I think a standard bookmark is maybe 2 by 6, so that's what this one is. So if you just take it and cut it in half at 6 inches, that's kind of like the standard size for a long bookmark. This one is a little bit shorter, but still halfway is 5 inches. So it's not, not full size, but it will still work as a bookmark. So now you have 4 long bookmarks and then 4 corner bookmarks. I'm going to put my trimmer out of the way, and I'm going to grab my bone folder because we will start with the corner ones. So basically you just fold it in half one way, burnish it, and then come back and fold it in half the other way. So I don't know how well you can see the 4 fold lines. You now have 4 quadrants. So I'm going to come in with my little scissors and I'm going to cut 1 full quadrant off. And that's what makes it easy to fold. And I cut like just outside of the score line. So now I'm left with 3 squares. So my quadrant that I cut off here, I'm going to go to the one just opposite it, and I'm going to cut that one in half at the diagonal. And I'm using my big scissors because I can get a straighter cut. You can use your trimmer for this too, but most of the time I'm doing these at like dance while I'm waiting for my girls at dance, or while I'm in the car, or if I'm at the library while the girls are doing something. So I tend to just use scissors. So now you have 2 full squares and 1 half square. And you would fold it up like that. So then to finish it off, I'm going to come in with my score tape. And I like to look at mine and see, like, because you have 2 full flaps here, 2 full squares. Like, which way does it lay better? I'm like, this is just kind of a silly thing, but depending on which one you fold in first, which one lays better. So in this case, it works best if this one's folded in first. So I'm going to go to my one that's not folded yet. And I use score tape just because it's quick. I don't have to wait for it to dry, and it's still a really good hold. Because if you figure a bookmark is going to be handled a lot, you know, being carried around with your book, if it's put in a backpack or a drawer, and just being pulled on and off. So you want something that will be strong. So I would probably recommend score tape or wet glue over just your regular tape runner. And again, I'm not using wet glue only because I don't want to have to wait for it to dry. So I put my tape on this square here, and then I'm just going to fold it over, try and line it up as best I can, and then kind of cut it down. And there's our corner bookmark. So again, we can make another one real quick. Fold in half, crease, turn it, fold it in half again, and then we're going to cut off one of the squares. And there are ways to make these corner bookmarks without cutting. So it's just a matter of folding, and I have done that before with thinner paper. So if you want to avoid scraps, that might be the way to go. But I just like this one. I know it generates more scraps, but I like, it's just, I don't know, I feel like it lays better. So, and I think it looks better that way. I'm just silly about that for some reason. So put my glue on. And like I said, you can totally use wet glue, and I have used wet glue before. It's probably the cheaper option, especially if you're making a bunch of these. But the other reason I like score tape is since I tend to not be at home when I'm making these, it's so much easier to do score tape. And fold it. And if you find that you have overhang, you know, anywhere, you can always just trim that up, especially when you're looking at it from the front. And I actually don't on that one. Okay, so those are the corner bookmarks. You get 4 of these. I will do the other 2 later. And for the, get all my stuff out of the way here. For the long bookmarks, I like to use my pad cover. So I don't know if you're like me and you save the front and back of every pad cover you've ever had because you're sure you can use that cardboard or chipboard somehow. This is one of the ways that I use it up. And I like to glue it on the cardboard looking side so that the white shiny side is up, just because I think it's prettier. But one thing you have to watch out for is if your pad was taped, you know, the little round tape they put on the side of the pad to hold it closed. Sometimes that leaves some residue on the back. So if you have that, you could try and clean it up with some undo or whatever, or Goo Gone. But I just tend to work around it. So I have 2 bookmarks, and if I glue them down so that it's a 5-inch and a 6-inch together, I'm not even gonna hit that spot. So that's what I am going to do. Find my glue. And for these, I do like to use wet glue just because I'm using so much of it. It's just a lot cheaper. And in this case, I'm just using some Aleene's tacky glue. And you can spread it out with your finger if you want. A lot of times I will do a little spreading with my finger because you want to try and get it to the edges. And then put it down on my cardboard. Kind of smooth it out as best you can, and then I should have brought a wipe over here. Then I like to come in with my bone folder and I'm kind of burnishing it down and making sure that the glue spreads out even more so that you don't end up with bubbles like that right there. And so that the glue is all the way to the edge of your bookmark. And I have found another reason that thicker paper works better for this is because depending on the wet glue you're using, sometimes you can see the bubbles or like the bumps underneath the thinner paper. So again, smooth that out. So that's kind of basically what I would do, and I would just keep going. Put my other 2 just like that, and then I'd come in and I have a old like guillotine paper trimmer that I use to cut these because it cuts through the chipboard, the cardboard really well, and kind of saves my regular trimmer blades. So once I had them all on, and I would let it dry, and I usually like set it underneath a stack of something heavy so that it keeps it flat, helps it dry flat, because sometimes the glue can cause it to bend and curl. So after it dried for a day or so, depending on, sometimes it's several days before I get back to it, I use my paper trimmer, like I said, the guillotine, to cut them down into my strips. And then you can round the corners if you want to. You can add embellishments if you want to, like stickers or stamps, sayings, whatever. And then punch your hole, like I punch a hole. And then that's what I tie my yarn through. You can use yarn, you can use embroidery thread, twine, ribbon, whatever you have. I just have an abundance of yarn that I've picked up from thrifting and garage sales and such. So I like to use that. Helps me use that up. And that's it. That's how I do my bookmarks. And like I said, my focus for this pad is the bookmarks, and then I will come back hopefully next week. We'll see how quickly I can get through it and show you what I've made with these scraps. All these fun little triangles and squares that I have. We'll see what I can come up with on how to use up those, so stay tuned for that. For those of you that have had questions about my bookmarks and my process, hopefully this answers some of those questions for you. If you enjoy this, give it a thumbs up. As always, thank you so much for your time today, guys, and I hope you have a crafty day.